Corina, Ali, thanks so much for this LinkedIn Live sessions marathon today on the lunch break on a Friday.
About coaching for leaders.
about coaching for leaders and about misconceptions. And Corina, it started with the fact that I've been following you for quite a while on LinkedIn, and I saw 2 weeks ago where you posted about a podcast episode, which you did recently. And I took that as my mountain bike podcast of the day. And amongst many fascinating and inspiring things, it stayed in my ear and in my mind how you were talking about your personal experience of being coached. And so the story went, coaching for me as unbosser and in the unbossing circle is connected with one name, and that is Ali. So I immediately contacted Ali. You have to hear this podcast, because there were so many things really where I almost heard Ali talking to me. And then we had a short conversation with the third of us. Let's say just spontaneous idea. Let's do this LinkedIn Live session. And I would like to open it first with the fact that Forbes seems to agree with us, because recently an article is out saying the old conception, the old thinking model about what coaching is and who needs coaching has to be radically changed, rethought, modernized. And I would like to ask you, but also our listeners here, when I tell you this typical sentence, which I personally have heard several times, namely, he or she, talking about the leader in the company, is really struggling recently. And we see there huge weaknesses, huge challenges and problems. Should we not, as a kind of last option, maybe we try it with a coaching?
Last resort, or we kick him out, or kick her out.
If that doesn't help, then I also don't know it anymore. But yes, it's funny, but I heard this sentence. Thanks God, I can say I never said this sentence. Knock on wood. But this is a bit incarnating this old mindset, and I wasn't free of that a couple of years ago as CEO, when you have asked me, Thomas, what about a coach? Hey, come on. I should have somebody who tells me how to do the job. Come on now. This is very typical, and to my knowledge, also still typical today in companies. So, Corina, could you please tell us in your own words about this experience you had while being coached?
Yes, would love to. So first, thanks again for the invitation. And it was really for me quite I will even say life-changing experience, because it was also a bit more by coincidence that I somehow got in contact with this coaching experience recently. So it was in the COVID lockdown time, where buyers of the company where I work, they basically offered a group coaching session for people in families who just maybe needed some support. So it was also more a problem oriented offer at first. And then I also had a single session with the coach, and I realized, somehow, number one, we really get along really well. So we seem to somehow vibe really well. In the group coaching, yes. But then also I had a single session with her. And then I said, I really want to continue that, because I realized that she was asking questions that forced me to think about myself, and that also forced me to sometimes take a different perspective, one that I maybe didn't have in mind. So certain things where I thought, oh, right, if I look at the thing from that, true. So I started, rethinking and challenging myself, and also realizing what I hadn't seen before, and really then also going into the work, into myself, and also realizing who I am really, who am I, what drives me, what motivates me, and what do I need in order to be kind of in tune with myself, and then also actually become a better version of myself that I had been, because I was really in a situation, all kinds of challenges, all kinds of tasks and duties and pressure in the COVID times, right? Also, you didn't have all the freedom in all aspects that you maybe had before. And I really felt kind of being kind of stuck in this rigid system somehow. And I needed somehow to break out of this. And the coaching experience really helped me do that by really asking the right, sometimes uncomfortable questions, but it really helped me to find out who I am and also what and who I want to be, right? And I think this is the prerequisite. You somehow first need to have yourself somehow sorted before you can actually think about your own contribution to a team, a family, and even the world, basically. Because if you don't have yourself sorted, how can you actually then think about anything else?
Yeah, and that's so important what you're saying, because that's what a good coach is doing, or she doing, is about bringing you a new perspective. And especially what you just talked about, this VUCA times, and with COVID, with so much complexity, changes, is this feeling sometimes you're in, is like you're stuck. And if someone comes and gives you this emotional freedom also to say, hey, okay, I can have also a different perspective to this, and immediately you feel this relief and new options are coming up for you.
Yes.
And that's so powerful if a coach can do this with you, that he changes your perspective and unleashes new energy.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it's just really a tiny thing, right? Yes. So sometimes it's just like yesterday I had a conversation when it was about just reframing. So many people in German always say, I have to do this now and I must do this. So I have all these duties I have to do. But if you think about it, no, actually you don't have to. Nobody is forcing you to do it. You choose to do it. Exactly. And people are like, no, I don't choose to go to work. No, actually you do, because theoretically you could just stay in bed in the morning, right? You don't have to go. Nobody is forcing you. It's yourself choosing to do that. And I think just by sometimes then also looking at it that way, you suddenly are the one active in the driver's seat, right? You're not the one where life happens to you and you're the victim of everything. But then you realize, no, actually, this is my own choice. This is what I want to do. And then you can actually start taking action. So it's not you reacting to circumstances that somehow happen to you, but you're actually the one even deciding and also taking action for things to happen in a certain way. And I think this is the fundamental difference. And in my case, also what coaching really helped me to embrace even more and to understand and see even more.
Yeah, thanks, Corina. And I think it's the central thing that you say, you yourself came to these conclusions. So that was not an outside person who told you, listen, Corina, here's my report. These are the conclusions about you, right? And on that behalf, Ali, I remember one of our first coaching sessions, you explained to me the difference between coaching, mentoring, consulting, because I think these terms are being mixed up. Could you give us a definition, please?
Yes, sure, to get clarity on the topic. Before I start, maybe we can ask in the round in our audience, maybe just tell us, where are you listening from? I mean, for me, I'm
we have already answers. Yeah, Deborah from Ghana. We have Rudolf from Ghent in Belgium. But indeed, yeah.
Yeah, just continue. Tell us from where you're asking, from where you're attending. That would be Great. And I see also a comment here, quick conclusion, someone accept coaching if they feel a sense of urgency. Yes, that's true. I mean, once you feel this, you feel like stuck and you feel like in a situation, hey, I need really urgently help, is absolutely the case. When you also are ready to change things, because then you're really in the energy to say, okay, I want to do this. Right, that's so important. But let's shed a light quickly on this topic of what is coaching, what is mentoring, what is consulting. And too often I experience, especially young coaches, some of them never went really through a certification or a training, is they come to you and they start telling you, hey, this would be the best thing to do in your situations, but that is not coaching. Once you tell someone what to do and you guide him through the process, that's typically consulting. If you're just giving nudges of, hey, this is what you could do, this is mentoring based on your experience when you mentor someone to develop in his career. Only when you really take yourself back and say, hey, I'm not the one to tell you what to do. I'm not the one to define what's going to be the outcome. I'm just the one who's guiding with my question through this process. So you find your solution, which fits to you. That is coaching. And that makes a really good coach, is even in critical situation. And it's typically normal that the coachee comes to you and says, hey, by the way, hey, I'm so stuck. Tell me, what could I do in this situation? It's so normal to ask this question. But a good coach reflects this back and says, okay, I'm not the one to tell you, because if I tell you, this will not help you. Right?
And at first you may even have that impulse and say, why am I paying all that money then if you don't tell me what I should be doing?
Right? Pay you for this, tell me.
But then maybe because we were just going into the definitions, right? Because basically then if you would tell the person what to do, for me, that would be teaching, right? And I mean, and it's not coaching, right? And I think that's the big difference in teaching somebody like, this is what you should do, versus coaching is saying, well, have you thought about this? Have you looked at it from that perspective? You know, what is the driving force behind this for you? Why do you even want to do whatever, you know, you have as a plan? Oh.
Yeah.
Just to jump in, so we have Birangusa from Brussels. Hi, Birangusa. I'm also in Brussels. By the way, Ali is in the Darmstadt region in Germany. Corina is in Hamburg region in Germany. We have Nelly from Namur. Yeah, it's a bit around the globe. Not forget Deborah from Ghana. And yeah, we are covering quite some distance. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I mean, what would be interesting is really the question is, but why is it the case? Why is it experienced as something? Coaching is a sign of weakness. Why is that?
I think that is still a historical thing in a way, because also in my earlier days, also I had quite a, let's say, an unsolved situation, let's say, with a direct superior. And then also it was like, okay, you get a coach. And also what was interesting is that I got the coach, you know, and then I was like, okay, so I'm the problem. And this is really the perception I had. And then at some point I was talking with the coach back then and I said, shouldn't also my superior somehow be in this process? No, because I mean, apparently this is a two-way street, right? So because I was at some point then also very convinced that I don't need fixing, right? I'm like, I mean, I realize we have an issue, like we don't really, apparently we don't talk the same language, but if it's just me changing, also somehow that can't be the solution, right? It's a dynamic between the two of us, or sometimes it's a dynamic in a team or something like that. But I think this is still coming from former days, that it's like, okay, there is a problem with a person, let's put a coach to that person, and then the person will already learn how to be better or more suitable, or, you know, how to fix the person. But I think, again, you know, I think times have changed and people have realized, no, actually, it's not fixing of the person. It's actually unleashing the potential of the person. And and then also enabling, because we also have the smart learning culture in the title of this session, to then also actually enable lifelong learning or a growth mindset. So to really pushing for that mindset shift.
Yes, and there's one more topic. I totally 100% agree with you, Corina. And there's one more topic which lies often in oneself. It is the understanding of myself. I can do it all by myself, and I have to do it all by myself because I am perfect. I want to deliver perfectly. But nobody can do this. We are not an island, right? Everyone has and needs help. And especially, and this is my experience, by the way, when you're going into new roles and in new challenges, taking new positions, good companies all over the world, also for my company, I was working with Bosch, for example, it was the case. Once you get a new role and they see potential in you, they offer you, hey, here's a coach for you. You can talk with him. He will not tell us anything what you're talking with him. This is just for you because we believe in you. And this is how good companies see coachings. I mean, that would be interesting also, by the way, Thomas, I guess this is also your question to the audience. What is their perception in their company about coaching, right?
Exactly. And Jos already gave us a couple of minutes ago an answer, and that was when I described this typical sentence, coaching, maybe as a last option. And also, I think, as a reaction what Corina was saying, oh, you know what? We see these problems there. You get a coach. That was also still a bit the incarnation of the old mindset. And Jos is saying that is a spot-on summary of how a majority of employees see coaching.
Yeah.
And Jos also said a bit further on, quick conclusion from his point of view, someone accepts coaching, if we feel a sense of urgency. So Jos, correct me if I'm wrong, but I see there a bit this coaching as therapy. So sounds like therapy.
Yes.
And
I think,
but
probably Jos didn't want to maybe Jos can give us some comments here. But first, again, the question I would really love to understand in the audience, how is coaching seen in your company, or how do you see it? So please give us your insights, and maybe we can consider it also in our discussion here. But I think the urgency is a good hint. But yes, for sure, it's not therapy. I think our audience is hopefully clear about that. We're not psychologists, we're not therapists. It's really what Corina said. You learn to listen and you learn to ask the right questions. I hear ringing, Thomas, at your side. Okay.
I told you already, I have to open the door.
Sort it out. We continue. So I think that's very often the situation we're having in companies is to see it as a weakness, but instead it should be seen as someone you give it to someone where you see potential. And like I said, it's also my experience. Just recently, I have a friend who has been nominated to C-level. The first thing they did is, hey, that's a coach just for you because we believe in you and we want you to be successful. So it's totally not a sign of weakness, although it's very often still seen like this.
No.
It's a sign of learning culture, right, Corina?
Definitely so. Because really a coach will enable you to think about yourself and also ask questions that you find out who you are, where you want to go, and also what drives you, what motivates you, and also to understand what's behind your actions. And only then, in my opinion, you can really also thrive in this world, to first find out who you are and what you need. And in terms of also the learning culture or the mindset shift in a way, also I now see it in our company, where then also there are certain, let's say, programs in place. And it really starts when people are about to enter the first leadership role, that we have programs where coaching is really a strong part of the whole program. And I think it's extremely beneficial because, only, I already said, I mean, only if you know who you are, you can actually then also have a good impact in the team and for others also. Because if you basically don't really know who you are, how do you want to lead a team of maybe 15 people, right?
Yeah. And we have an interesting comment here from Nelly saying, I see coaching as guiding a person to achieve his or her goals. Exactly. I mean, that's a very good definition of it. And the way you do it is without defining the goal for her or for him, is just guiding him, like it said here. And that's maybe an interesting, Corina, I think you have also your experience here. Interesting topic to lead on is coaching is not about just talking, right? I mean,
yes.
What is your experience, Corina?
Yeah, that it actually starts with the doing very much. I mean, of course, you can do lots of thinking and theorizing in your mind on who you want to be and what you want to do. But in the end, if you don't start doing, you're not going to experience the change and the difference. And I was just now recently also discussing the theory, and I was naming it earlier from Herminia Ibarra, the act like a leader, think like a leader, and that order is really on purpose that way. So it is do things differently in order to learn, because only when you do and experience, then also your mindset will shift, because your experience is a different one and a new one, right? And also, as I was saying earlier, then in that coaching that I was gifted with, where then also I, of course, then started doing things differently with my superior, then by miracle, things started changing. Yes, because I was behaving in a different way. And that brought the change along. If I would have just thought differently but never changed anything, the dynamics among us wouldn't have changed, right? So really the doing is a fundamental piece of any coaching. And also I always say also the trying out. You know, don't be also too dogmatic on this is not who I am. No, give it a try. I mean, sometimes, you know, just also trying a slightly different behavior. It doesn't mean that you have to appear like a schizophrenic person, but sometimes it's just a slight twist on how you would usually do something. If you just try it slightly differently or use a slightly different way to express yourself, it can have a massive difference.
Absolutely. And it's so important that you're saying, hey, it's not only about talking, but you got also then the task from your coach to say, okay, then do this thing if you want to do it. So do it differently. And the next time we talk about how was it for you?
Exactly.
You done it differently. So how did it feel? What did it change? Yeah. And that's what you learn also and apply as a good coach is in the end. And we know this from psychology and neuropsychology is you don't change just your mindset. You only start changing your mindset once you're doing and experiencing, and your brain starts to see things differently, but only by experiencing them. This is why it's so important, and a good coach should do this, is to motivate the coachee really to do things differently and experience them, and not only just talk.
Exactly.
Yeah. We have an interesting comment here also, right, Thomas? You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Classic sentence. No, I first want to say, Ali, that is a really a typical Ali question, huh? And I know it so well. And how was it for you? Did you try it?
Yes,
it's amazing, and I just want to say that to everybody also who thinks I don't need a coach. For example, my experience with Ali. Ali, you are asking me questions which lead me to thoughts and conclusions, which I would have never reached on my own. It is simply a fact. Yeah. by this art of asking questions. But now I will read indeed the comment of Tanya Berg. Tanya says the difference between these roles, so consulting, coaching, and so further, is very important because you need to change your leadership roles in these three areas in relation to the question, what is the pain? What does the client need most to move forward? More importantly, however, very interesting, a manager should never be a coach themselves, says Tanya, as this inevitably leads to conflicts of interest. It is an interesting statement because I remember also in our German speaking session, we were talking about the coaching elements which a modern leader from our point of view, Ali, an unbossed leader, should have. And maybe can we talk about that? Which elements of coaching, if we say, okay, the leader is not the coach, but which elements of a good coach should a leader have and apply from your point of view?
Corina, maybe you want to start first.
For me, it is more asking questions instead of telling people what to do or how to do it. So it's again, because that's why I also threw in the teaching definition earlier. So for me, leading a team, it's not so much teaching them on how to do stuff, but rather coaching them to do it in a way that they will succeed. Because I have a certain way of either solving an issue, solving a problem, or also, you probably all know this from earlier days when your boss would ask you, please CC me on that email. And then maybe you would pre-align it or something. And then I was lucky to have bosses who would say, I would write it like this or that, you know. And then I thought, but then it's still me sending it. It doesn't sound like me anymore, right? Yeah, but you should. And then sometimes I just thought, no, I'm not going to do it that way anyway, right? But that's for me exactly the point. So instead of, as it was a couple of years back still, kind of do it like this, rather asking a question on, first, maybe also understanding why have you done it the way it's done? What do you want to express? You know, also classic in my world is presentations for whatever. If you either give an update or you want to convince a certain stakeholder group. And then, of course, it's faster if I would just start fiddling around with the charts and rewrite the headlines. But then I rather sit with the team and then say, okay, so you've put this together. You've put it forward as a proposal. If I now look at this chart, what's the key message you want to convey with this chart? And then sometimes, or usually I ask the question when also I'm not sure what the key message should be, right? And then they realize, oh, you're right, I'm not clear, am I? I'm like, well, I'm just asking the question. So if you think it's clear, for me, when I looked at it, it wasn't immediately, but what did you want to express? And then, you know, I could have just told them, write it like this, and then it's clear. Well, then it would have been clear, number one, just for me, maybe not for them, right? And so also to just nudge to include another viewpoint. And I think this is for me the key point. Getting more viewpoints in is something that coaching achieves to do. Because usually without coaching, without challenging or questioning yourself, you always have your own glasses on. And even if you think things through, it's always your own mind spiral kind of working. But a coach manages to actually ask a question in a way that you wouldn't have asked yourself, exactly as you're saying, Thomas. You know, you get a question where you're like, oh, true, oh, didn't think about it that way, or I didn't ask, or didn't think about that question. Interesting. And that forces you to somehow approach the topic with a different angle or a different approach. And I think this is what is so enriching and then leading to either lifelong learning, growth mindset, however you want to call it. But only with that challenge, you will actually progress.
Yeah. And that's what's so important, Corina, to use for you as a leader. I mean, maybe coming also again back to Tanya's comment is, I mean, spot on. a leader should never be a coach, and 100% agree. The only thing a leader can do is using coaching elements. And it's very important to understand always as a leader in the situation where you are right now, where is that pain of my associate, of my employee? So what does he need? So is it more something he needs input, he needs content? I'm not a coach in that situation. Or does he need guidance? What does he need? So look into what does he need. And the other element is, as a leader, you're always responsible for a result. Let's face it. So you cannot stand back and play the coach. And I've seen it so often, people trying to do this, stand back and play the coach, and then they start coming again in, like a director saying, okay, no, you can do it however like you want, but think of this, and don't forget this, and the outcome should be that. Then you're not a coach anymore. And to be honest, you cannot be a coach as a leader, but what you can do is using coaching elements, like you said, Corina, asking the question, bringing new perspectives. And that's why we have in our Unbossed Leadership Program, we're offering also this element of what tools can I use as a leader to be more sometimes a coach than really just a director. And to do that, we have, for example, the GROW model, which is a very famous model in coaching, where you can lead through 4 steps through a meeting with your employees. Instead of telling them what they do, you bring them at the end to find their own solutions.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. Thanks also, Corina, for this really real life example with this PowerPoint presentation. And I think every one of us and every listener knows so well what you mean. And also, talking about leaders, it is difficult at the beginning, and I speak from own experience, to step back. And it's not only out of an ego trip, it's also sometimes really because first there's time pressure, second, you want really the best for the team, not because you think you are the brightest, whatever, but please, and to control this impulse and lead with such questions. What is your target? What do you want to achieve? This really, my compliments on that, Corina. This is exactly the leadership style which we preach. And may I ask you another question, Corina? When we had our preliminary talks, you were talking about also now about this constant learning culture, permanent learning culture. And you see this connection of, I think, you being coached with developing such a culture. Could you explain that?
Yes. So I already just slightly hinted on that earlier, but for me, it's really crucial. And I think it's like some people would say, yeah, you're a learner anyway, right? So whenever I go along somewhere, I always want to understand. I want to dig into the details. And for me also, if I just look at the world we're in today, things are changing at such a rapid speed and pace that if I just apply my learnings from years ago, I'm not going to be best equipped in order to manage and to thrive in all these challenging situations right now. So I need to somehow be able to also see what's happening around me, challenge my own approach, and then adapt accordingly. Because if I keep doing the same things like I've done them years ago, it's not suited to today's world anymore. And I think this is the important piece where then coaching comes in, because the coach is exactly doing this job, challenging you on how you would usually do things. And that's where, for me, really this lifelong learning is so closely connected to the coaching experience. And I think earlier also I said it even in the German version, but the sentence of what got us here won't get us there. And that's exactly my point. So also, if you keep thinking the same way, if you keep tackling challenges the same way, you're never going to get to a different outcome. Or if you keep doing it the same way, but the circumstances have changed, also you're not going to be successful. So, and that's for me kind of applying my old school scripts to a new world is not going to be a match, right? So I need to be willing to constantly do at least a check. I don't even say you constantly have to challenge yourself, but at least doing the check on why am I doing this, and is it actually still the right thing that I'm doing? Or shouldn't I adapt my approach or my thinking, my whatever to get where I want to get? But again, the basis for all of this is that you know who you are yourself, because only then you can say, this is me, this is where I want to get, and then I can see how to reach that or how to get there. And the coaching is, for me, extremely closely linked to that.
Yeah, and it's so important what you're saying about yourself, being centered in yourself. And by the way, Tanya responded to my comments and agreed. Thank you, Tanya.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya.
So it's so important, because this is what ideally a coaching brings you also, that sometimes you feel a bit, it's too much, it's a lot of things, and where am I standing in all this? And Corina, you talked about challenging yourself. It's not only about challenging. You don't need to challenge yourself. It's your circumstances, your all around what's happening, what is challenging also yourself, and always. So it is there. And the only way to deal with it, to cope with it, is have yourself a very strong centered element in you to say, what do I want? What am I? Where I want to go? What feels good for me to do? And it's a lot about this emotional element also, to say, okay, when I step into this, and then when I do this, does it feel good for me? Is it the right thing? And does it bring me to the right goal I'm trying to achieve?
Yeah, and I think also this sensibility of how do I feel moving in that direction? You know, is it something where I feel energized, or is it draining? That's also usually a very good indication. But that is also something I just learned through coaching, right? So that I was also, that the coach was asking me, well, but for example, doing this or that, is that costing you energy? Or what does it cost you, or what does it bring you? Do you feel good, you know? And I think this is a really strong way to also realize what you're actually doing.
Yes, and it's sometimes not the first thing you would think about.
Exactly.
And that's my experience with a coachee was that she was demotivated in a situation. And normally she's really an overachiever. She was really an overachiever. So she was giving 110% and doing things. And normally you would expect someone who always acts like this. This is what gives him energy if he's doing things, right? But what she found out for herself in this coaching was, hey, I thought this gives me energy, but the fact I am right now demotivated is actually coming from my doing, which is always going 100% perfection on something. And this does not give me energy. What gives me energy is going full on what's important for me. And then she framed really the sentence for herself to say, perfectionism demotivates me. And that was an eye-opener for herself. And that was really also for me fantastic, always for a coach to experience this and to observe this and to see the impact.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. It's a fascinating story. You know what stays in my head, in my mind? When I hear a young leader like Corina, and I'm talking about your age, Corina, not about your experience. And you say this sentence, Corina, you know, otherwise I always stay in my old school things, which I have learned. Yeah. It's striking. I mean, you said it in the German session, you say it now again, and I wonder why that sentence keeps in my head. Is, of course, this is so true. And now I imagine a leader who is 55, 56, 30 years out of university. Never had a coaching, certainly has developed his style, let's suppose so. Let's suppose also as successful leader. Would you recommend coaching also to such a leader, also without a perceived problem or a perceived urgency?
Always. Yes. Yes. No, because the thing is, if that person has never done coaching, either by coincidence, the person is going to be extremely reflective and very conscious about his or her own ways of dealing with people and topics. But for me, a coach will always enrich your viewpoint. And in today's world also, where hopefully you have more and more diverse teams, more and more perspectives, it will just help you succeed. And also, even if you have maybe not even if you have a very, let's say, same leveled team, so not as diverse maybe, but still the challenges in this world have become so much more complex, so much more diverse, that if you keep doing the same things like in the past, I think you're missing out. You're not going to be as successful as you could be if you opened up your mind and opened up your viewpoint.
Thank you so much. Corina, I want to say congratulations at this point of time also to Beiersdorf, who, I mean, gives you that environment, gave you very obviously the opportunity, and does very smart moves here. And Ali, I would love to give the last word to you. We have spoken a lot about misconceptions, situations in which coaching can help. I learned almost in every situation, but please, Ali, floor is yours.
I mean, it's obvious that getting help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. And coaching is therefore not a sign of weakness, but a sign of a company or yourself taking yourself seriously and important, and showing that you're interested in yourself to unleash new energy. This is what it is.
Thank you so much, Ali. Thanks, Corina. Thanks to all our listeners and also for your inspiring comments and all these dialogues and actions. That's exactly how such a LinkedIn live session is to be wished for. Thank you very much. We end the stream here and see you in our next sessions.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.